Hello, and welcome to the very, very first Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition live stream here at Beamdog. I'm Philip Daigle, and this is, of course, Chris Avellone.
Hello there. Thanks for joining us.
Chris was the lead designer on Planescape Torment, and again on Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition. So he's joined us here to talk about Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition and why it's the greatest version imaginable.
That is very kind, Phil.
And,
that is very kind.
You know, why people should just give us their entire life savings because this game is amazing.
Could be a lot of money, Phil, in which case I really can't argue with that.
We'll price the game accordingly.
I will say with Torment, you know, considering it came out 20 years ago, it's proof that if you live long enough as a game developer, eventually your career will cycle right back to the beginning. Like some twisted cycle of an immortal character with amnesia, perhaps. I don't know.
Say. All right, well, we've got a bunch of fun events planned for you guys today. We're going to be giving away prizes throughout this entire stream. We've got some cool stuff. We have Planescape Torment t-shirts, which I'm going to show you one right now. It's this awesome picture of the Lady of Pain. Cool. And as well, we're going to be giving away free game keys for Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition. As well, we're going to be giving away a signed autographed poster that has everybody on the team on it, including Chris. So one lucky person is going to get that. And as well, we're going to be giving away a free Baldur's Gate Siege of Dragonspear Collector's Edition during the stream. So first off, let's give away a prize right now.
Wow, that's right out of the gate. That's awesome.
I'm a generous man, a very generous man. All right, so our helper Dan is going to pull up a name from the list of people that are in the chat right now.
Thank you, Dan.
All right, the person who wins a free Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition t-shirt is...
Oh, my God.
How do you pronounce that? Escher Chiacoli.
Oh, my God. I can't even believe you said that.
It's like a hieroglyph. Well, you know who you are. Congratulations. You did it. Good for you. So, all right. Well, now that that's out of the way, I guess we can jump into Planescape Torment.
Well, sure. So here's the Enhanced Edition. That's why you're here in the first place. Got brand new and new life here, which is a clever way of saying start a new game.
So before we jump into starting a new life here, eagle-eyed viewers will remember that originally there were only 3 buttons on this screen. There was New Life, Select Life, and the Abyss.
But in the Enhanced Edition, we've added 2 new buttons.
Resume Life, which picks up your most recent save, and Alter Senses, which is a way to get at options. Previously, you actually had to go into the game.
I accidentally
wait. This is actually a good screen to show off because you can see we have the option to switch between Enhanced and Original. So the first time when you start the game, you're going to get this screen, and it actually lists out all of the features of both the Original and Enhanced modes. And, of course, there's this awesome little letter from Chris Avellone.
Oh, again, you're being too kind. But
very, very nice.
Yeah, I really did appreciate the chance to work on the experience, and being able to write a thank you letter was welcome, as well as draw my signature several times until it was actually legible enough for you to copy and put on any legal documentation you want and basically sign my life away. So thanks, Beamdog.
As you may or may not know, I have power of attorney over you now, and I'm doing some very exciting work as you. So let's hop into the enhanced version of Planescape Torment.
Sounds great. So I'm going to click Done.
Yeah, let's just go with the enhanced stuff.
But see, I was actually going to the options screen first. But here's what Alter Senses actually does. But let's go back, start a new life like I was supposed to. And here's the character generation screen for Torment.
As you know and remember it from the original, but way, way higher resolution now. Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition goes up to 4K, which is a significant upgrade from 640 by 480, which is what it was at before. I believe 4K is, like 16 times larger than that, so it's a bit of a bump.
That is quite a bump. And I'm going to go with strong intelligence, strong wisdom, and strong charisma, which is totally unlike me in real life, but that's why they call this a role-playing game.
Chris, I find you to be a wise, intelligent, and charismatic
You do not know me very well, then.
However, your strength I would peg at 9, yes.
Okay, well, I would agree with that. I'm not Trent Oster, so that is clearly true. Here we are with their opening cinematic.
And there's Mort coming in.
And getting off the slab. For viewers out there, we discovered that during one of our focus tests, we actually had to stage this sequence of Mort coming up to you and automatically joining the party because everyone would miss him. So they would just go through the mortuary all by themselves and find it incredibly boring. But so we have an auto ad for Mort at the party and him actually talking to you.
You know, you see enough floating skulls, you just stop seeing them.
And especially in Planescape, you're like, it's just a mirror. Like, you know, no one would ever masquerade as a mirror. And he tells you that you have all these fun scars on your back that give you convenient directions about what to do next. You're kind of like a walking manual and strategy guide all rolled into one.
Voiced by Rob Paulson.
Paulson. And another fun factoid for people out there, actually the original intention of the person to cast was Steve Buscemi, but we actually just could not make it work out with his schedule. But Rob Paulson did a fantastic job. He was a pleasure to work with the studio.
And some of you may remember that he's Yakko from Animaniacs, along with a whole bunch of other things. I think he was Pinky from Pinky and the Brain, too.
I do believe so, yes. Yeah. He occasionally broke into that voice during the voice recording session, and it made the game far more interesting because of the voice acting.
Hey, speaking of enhancements, even though you weren't speaking of enhancements, now, when you start the game, you actually get the interface explained to you in a very useful way.
That is very convenient. And you know what else is convenient? Is when I go over to the options screen here, to the gameplay options, and heal on us, max hit points on level up. That's how I like to play. And also always run, which is something that delights me to no end because you can traverse maps a lot quicker.
Those are all the objectively correct options to enable. But we're purists, so we left them turned off as they were in the original.
And Mort tells you, guess what? He found a scalpel. A scalpel is a weapon you can use to attack a corpse. And then Mort tries to explain that he doesn't really want to be part of the attacking, but then you can threaten him into doing so. So it's all good.
If you can't threaten a floating skull,
what are
you saying about yourself?
And this is another gameplay tip for people playing it for the first or second time. Please equip as many things as you can into the quick item slots, and even seemingly worthless rings and earrings. Please put on your character sheet because they will save space. Even though Mort was partially designed as a floating chest to carry all your items, eventually even his inventory will be filled up.
This is one of those classic Infinity Engine things where you're just constantly moving inventories around. But it's a good tip. You've got a bunch of quick item slots. You may as well keep them loaded up. In the meantime, we're just ripping apart a bunch of zombies here. I like that you went to the last one that you needed.
I wanted to make sure you saw all the death. I mean, I didn't want any zombie to be left out. No zombie left behind. That's my important motto of the day.
Fair. That's fair. So as we were playing, you'll notice that like all the enhanced editions, you can zoom in and out as you please. Another cool thing that you can do is that when you're in the game world, if you middle click the mouse button, it'll go to Pixel Perfect mode, which is the, do it, let's take a look. Although I think you're already at Pixel Perfect mode. So if you were to zoom in and then press the button, it will dump you at exactly Pixel Perfect mode.
Oh, wow.
And that's a request that we had from the fans from the previous enhanced edition. So it's one of the many things that we've added here. And we're going to continue working our way through the mortuary.
And the mortuary is obviously where you wake up at the start of the game, but it's also the home of a faction called the Dustmen, who believe that everyone should aspire to die their final death in the true form, because otherwise you can't escape the misery of life and pain. And the first representative you meet is this very old dust man who's close to dying. His name is Daigle, and he is keeping track of this huge thing called the Dead Book, which is a very, very large book that supposedly contains all the names of everyone who's died in the multiverse, and it's pretty crazy.
So Daigle will always stand out to me because he was the first character I saw in Planescape Torment after playing Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale, where his character sprite was just completely off the wall compared to everything you'd seen beforehand.
Yeah, the concept art for him and the eventual character model. Eric Campanella was our character modeler for almost every model in the game, and he had a really nice aesthetic style. Like even Dahl's like floating wheelchair was fantastic, and sorry, I can't help but just want to loot stuff. Oh, I love it.
It's the classic Infinity Engine tick. You have to open every single container, regardless of what you know or know not to be in there.
And one of the first characters you can meet aside from Daigle is actually one of the tieflings in the world of Planescape, which I believe is now an official race in 5th edition.
It is. Tieflings made their way in as a core race now, along with Dragonborn. So you've got devilish creatures and dragon-looking creatures as core races.
Updated my journal.
And Mort acts the role as sort of your floating encyclopedia, so he's actually able to spell out all this information for you. And to be honest, one of the reasons we made the character, your player character, have amnesia in the first place was because there was so much to explain about Planescape Torment that we're like, you know what? It's much better if the player and the player character start off knowing exactly nothing about the license. And that was a... actually, I can get some memories from her, too.
It was a bold choice because, I mean, a lot of RPGs today, and even back then, would be very careful about trying to ease the player into the setting. Planescape took it in kind of an opposite direction, where it's just like, we're going to throw you into the deep end and let the setting come to you.
Yeah, there was just so much stuff to explain. We figured just throwing you in the deep end is the best thing to do. And here's an example of you slowly remembering parts about your past in the game, and we'd marked them all with this echo statement, which is basically your memory of what you said in the past. So even doing something as simple as watching Ivy and the Tiefling here operate in this corpse can cause you to learn something about yourself. So.
Now, we can't really hear the game right now because of our headset, but keen listeners will realize that the soundtrack is slightly better than it used to be in the original game. We actually went in and remastered it based on the original soundtrack CD, so it's a much richer and high-quality experience. So the audio is turned down a little bit, so it's a bit hard to hear, but check it out in-game. It sounds fantastic. And as well, the soundtrack for Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition is going to be available on Steam and Beamdog, and of course on GOG as well.
So to reward players who like selecting every dialogue option and sort of exploring conversations, this particular zombie you can encounter here, it turns out he's actually a human being in disguise, and he's actually gone so far as sort of to stitch himself up and look like a zombie. But for players that are paying a lot of attention and exploring all the dialogue options, they can uncover this spy within the mortuary and try and figure out what he's up to do.
You should lie to him.
No,
you still can.
Yes, I'm spying on the Dusties, which is slang for dustmen, in case you hadn't
See, now we're getting information. Lying gets you things. That's the thing to keep in mind.
And this is your first exposure to a second faction in Planescape, which is the Anarchist, which is the faction that is trying to tear all the other factions down and sort of set everybody free. But they're kind of a dangerous group within Planescape Torment. But
so factions. So Planescape Torment was one of the first RPGs that really leaned heavily on the whole faction system and really allowed the player to join one of many factions and do a whole bunch of different things. And nowadays, you'll see that in all kinds of RPGs. I mean, check out Skyrim, Dragon Age. All these games have faction systems, and Planescape was kind of a pioneer in that regard.
Another fun factoid is, so this anarchist here, Vaxis, has told me of another way to escape the mortuary rather than trying to get out the front door. He's explained the concept of these things called portals, which are an important part of Planescape. The city of doors where you've woken up in is actually composed of both very obvious portals and hidden portals that are scattered throughout the city, but you need to find a very specific key in order to use each one. And Vaxis has just told me that there is a portal on the first floor. All I need to do is find the proper key for it, which is this crooked finger bone. But the other thing I wanted to say is that we also had to have a player response that actually repeated what he said because of his stitched lips in the game. His dialogue was so hard to understand. We actually put in a player response that would summarize what he was saying.
Smoke and mirrors revealed at last.
Game developer tricks. Oh god, I love the tab key. Oh, thank you. Tim.
Yeah, that's another enhancement in this version is you can hit tab to bring up a highlight. Now, that was actually introduced way back in the day in Baldur's Gate 2, but it never made its way into Planescape Torment. To go into the history of Torment and Baldur's Gate a little bit, so both games used the Infinity Engine, as did Icewind Dale, but Planescape Torment was released in '99, Baldur's Gate was released in '98. So when Planescape Torment got the engine technology to start working on the game, it was before the Infinity Engine was finished for Baldur's Gate, so there were entire subsystems that were just not present in the Black Isle build of the Infinity Engine. So they had to completely design their own spell subsystems, they had to implement a lot of D&D subsystems in their own way, and then BioWare implemented them in a different way. So when we came in to do the Enhanced Edition, initially it looked like, you know, hey, they're both the Infinity Engine. It should be a fairly straightforward job to port all of the PST content into our Enhanced Edition engine. And what we learned was, in fact, the engines were more cousins than perhaps siblings. and there was a lot of extra work that we had to do. We had to completely rebuild the spell system, and it was a lot more than we anticipated, but in the end, it was worth it because we think that Planescape is probably the best release we've ever done.
Yeah, kudos to all the gameplay programmers that actually got those spells working again, because finding the source code for it was difficult. So they actually had to go do gameplay research to figure out the ins and outs of how they work. That was an impressive feat.
The other problem we ran into was that, so Planescape Torment did actually receive a patch way back in the day, bringing it up to version 1.1. Unfortunately, the source code that we had was for 1.0, and the source code for 1.1 is either lost forever or stuck in somebody's basement. So we had to step through the game and re-implement all of the fixes from the 1.1 patch, in addition to porting it over to the
And there are a lot of spells with very unique properties.
Yes. So Planescape was very JRPG inspired with its cinematic spells, and they look amazing. They look awesome, and they do cool things. But
sorry.
That was a
Didn't mean to cuss.
Oh, no, you're in trouble now.
Oh God.
She's got you dead to rights. Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
No,
no,
I'm just gonna. So the reason I'm running is because the dustmen who run the mortuary realize that having a floating skull and me running around there is obviously out of place, and they're not quite as nice as Doll, who's on the second floor. So I don't know. What should I do, Phil? Should I just be honest, or?
I mean, I personally would attempt to break her neck, but your dexterity is rather poor. You would probably just trip and fall.
I could still give a dexterity a shot, and we don't.
Maybe.
Okay, you know what? I am lost. Okay, yeah, but I don't want you to summon a guard. I'm just gonna snap his neck. And of course, Phil's right. Not fast enough.
Butterfingers.
But that's one thing we try to do, to give all the stats and abilities like an actual consequence in the game. And one is, if you're just not dexterous enough, you can't pull off the snap neck maneuver. But you can, however, still fortunately pull off the "I'm going to murder you" maneuver, which my auto AI already took care of. Ooh, wow.
Jagged knife and a rusty dagger.
Oh, I should.
Things are coming up. Nameless one.
I should just do this.
Here we go. Yeah. So, Chris, when was the last time that you actually played through PST?
2 days ago.
2 days ago? Okay.
Yeah, and then before that, I played the Enhanced Edition quite a bit, just to get a feel for the game and see if I could spot any issues or problems. But the build that I played was pretty clean.
Yeah. Before that, what was the last vanilla version of PST that you played?
Probably maybe a year before that. But I probably played mostly just the Hive section and play all the way through the game. Although I think Colin McComb actually did a playthrough of Planescape not too long ago, but I'm not totally familiar if he enjoyed himself or not. I hope he did.
I would hope so.
He kept calling me up and cursing my name, probably. So.
That was for an unrelated reason, though. Bash to see it. So what I love about D&D is that if you don't have a key, you can often just bash your way in.
Yeah, and I think we just got the portal key that we need for the first floor, so I think we're in good shape. I'll just pop that in my quick items.
Although we should steal the mortuary key, I guess.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Although you might get accosted by some zombies along the way.
If that happens, they're just going to have to die. Although I would like to switch my weapons when I think about it.
So while we're on the screen here, I've got a question that has just been gnawing at me, and it's the belt, the WWE Wrestler Championship belt on the
Lord of the Plains belt that he's wearing. Yeah,
I feel like he won it in a no holds barred cage match, where he fell 20 feet in Hell in a Cell and survived.
There was probably some incarnation of the Nameless One that actually did go through that process, and you know what?
So hold on, are you saying that it is canon that a previous iteration of the Nameless One was a wrestler, a professional wrestler?
I would like to say that, Phil, but for the purposes of respecting the franchise, I will not say that.
Okay,
I think Walt would make you happy.
I'm just saying we could make history here, and no one can stop us.
Now you're pressuring me, Phil. Okay, now you're pressuring me.
All right,
no, that's okay. I like it.
To console you, let's give away another prize.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Let's do that.
Let's give away this time a free copy of Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition.
All right.
So the person who wins this is going to get a key that they can then run off and redeem somewhere. I believe this is for Beamdog, so I was wrong. And the winner is Romadrick. Romadrick, congratulations. You're getting a free copy of Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition.
And congratulations to you for having a much easily pronounceable name.
Right?
I mean,
right.
I was like, wow, that was a mouthful, the first one. So
we got through it. Hey, so while you're cleaning out some loose ends here, I'm going to show off something cool here.
Please do. I love syncs. I love
so
stuff.
This here is actually an original copy of Planescape Torment. This is from the first production run back in '99. Mark Brockington, one of the ex-Bioware guys here, brought it in. It was really, really cool. And he brought something with it that's really, really awesome. This t-shirt, it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but this is an original Planescape Torment t-shirt from 1999. Brian Fargo brought it to BioWare when they were visiting. And on the back, there's this sweet
Get the full-on nameless
one. Pretty cool. We are not going to give this away. I promised Mark I would give it back.
Well, you know, I didn't promise that.
That's true.
It's all good.
And you're going to be flying home, so it's not like he can stop you.
You know, it would take a lot of effort to track me down, but Mark might be that person. So we're about to encounter Dayanara, who actually is one of the most important NPCs in Planescape Torment, and she has been laid to rest here in the mortuary. And as I talk to her, she seems to know me, and she has very strong feelings for me, which
who can blame her?
I know. And here's the part where you can start going, well, I kind of need to know what you know about me, and I'm going to try and be very non-committal about this, just so I can get some more information.
Dating 101.
And first off, do you know who I am? Okay, but she's going to be a little cryptically vague because Dayanara's got some oracle blood running through her, so she sees things from a much higher perspective.
Dayanara, she was voiced by Jennifer Hale,
Yep.
And this was actually one of Jennifer Hale's first roles in the game industry. She did a lot of work with BioWare and Black Isle for her first few games, and this is one of them. And she's also the voice of Fall from Grace, a companion that you can find later in the game.
And also another gameplay tip for those of you playing the game for the first time. Do go speak to Dayanara, and do be sure to ask her as many questions about yourself as you can, as she can unlock special abilities for you, which is very, very cool. And ultimately, though, however, you really just kind of want to get out of the mortuary. And even though I actually already have a way out, I'd still like to see if Dayanara has any clues for me. And I'm going to play the danger card. Because if she loves me, then, okay, she's going to give it. Guess what? There are portals. But you know what? I'm sorry. I already found out what one of the portals are. And I think I'm going to try and say goodbye.
See ya.
But at this point,
Yeah,
she's
then
like, wait a minute.
And
Dayanara actually gives you the outline, the plot points for the rest of the game. So she's definitely worth getting the prediction from, which is good.
In most RPGs, they would put Dayanara like smack dab on the critical path and guarantee that you cannot miss her. But PST did not hold your hand. It was a very do-it-yourself RPG. So it's entirely possible to never see Dayanara on your way out of the mortuary if you play it a different way. And some people might take issue with that, but I think it's kind of cool that the game lets you make that decision. Even if you're not aware that you're making it, it's still interesting that the option is there.
Yeah, I think a big part of the role-playing game experience is what does each player see and what does each player see on their playthroughs. And so here she comes with her prediction. Dun, 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 tell me your prediction. Oh, but now she wants to make promises.
Just lie. She's not going to know.
But I'll know.
You'll know, that's true.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is what my eyes.
You know, and this is one thing that I
meet enemies 3, but none more dangerous than your. You shall come to a prison. I know that you must die. While you still
There's also kind of a reversal in the fact that the
circle
game is
must
actually
come to a
encouraging
close,
you to
my
find
love.
a way to permanently
my
die
journal.
as one
Not
of the
meant
quest
for
goals
this
for the
life.
game, which was pretty
You must find that which was
enjoyed that
taken
little
from
spin.
you and travel beyond
How long has
into
this
the
been going
lands
on?
of the dead.
And it's been going on for a long time.
So was there ever an established number
I
of
shall
years,
wait
or
for
is it
you
just
in death's
generally in the
halls, my
thousands?
love.
One of the things to do in narrative design, which sometimes I have to argue, is sometimes there's a danger of being too specific with a lore point, where actually that weakens the storyline by actually providing too much information on it.
Well, it's like the Lady of Pain. I mean, to give her a backstory would weaken her as a character. To give her a voice, to give her a specific character beyond what she already is. So it's definitely true. Yeah,
we often found that part of the the sort of ambience of Planescape is that sense of mystery and that ability that you just can't know everything about the planes. There's still more to find out, more to explore. And here's a cutscene revealing that possibly you're
pit of shadows
in trouble from some other source that doesn't like the fact that you left the mortuary. But
through the portal. Very quickly here, let's take a look at the options. We've got a question about the sound options. Someone asked if there's separate sliders for all of the different options, and there are. You can have everything divvied up. If you hit cancel and just take a look at, say, graphics. We're not going to change any options here, but you can see everything is optional. All the things marked with an asterisk, that's an enhanced edition feature, and so you can toggle that on and off. One thing actually we will show off is you want to click on Use Tablet Interface.
All right.
Right there. And then we'll hit Done and back. So we're not going to play the game like this, but I wanted to quickly show everybody our awesome tablet interface for Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition. So when you're on desktop, you'll have the desktop interface, but if you desire, you can switch to this. So the tablet interface has been very redesigned from the desktop version. It's much more suited for a tablet. You've got your buttons on the side that are collapsible. The buttons in the bottom right are much, much larger now. It's just a much, much better experience on tablet versus the previous enhanced editions, where we tried to keep the interface with the tablet and desktop versions as close as we could, whereas with PST-EE, we were willing to go a lot further in making the experience feel great on the platform that it's on. So if we hop back into, where are the options? Oh, the diskette in the bottom left. We had to keep the disk because it's like one. And then graphics.
Oh, sorry.
And then we'll head back to the desktop, yeah. But we've had a lot of really great options. Another thing we should do is actually give people a cool tour of the subscreens here. So if we hop into inventory.
All right.
So inventory, as you remember it, except now it's a much, much higher resolution background. The paper dolls as well, we dressed those up a bit by giving them cool backgrounds. If you switch over to Mort, you can see that each character has their own custom background. Dakon's is really cool. It's got a bunch of geometric shapes and that sort of thing. Let's head over to...
And actually with the inventory screen, actually what you may notice is that different people have different types of slots. Yeah. So for example, the Nameless one's the only one who has the eyeball slot, and only some characters have the tattoo slot, et cetera, et cetera. But, and some of them, if you click on them, will make really funny UI responses, especially Anna and Fall from Grace, and it was one of our ways of making the inventory screen more interactive and more part of the story.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I mean, the interface of Planescape Torment is pretty insane. It is not your typical like stone and brick fantasy interface. It almost feels like it's a character itself.
And our programmer, Yuki Furumi, was responsible for implementing all the inventory stuff and the computer game screens. And he was a very, very patient guy.
So the entire UI for PST was built in 3D and then rendered out as this sort of weird bladed machine interface, as if it's some sort of object. So in doing the Enhanced Edition, all of those original 3D assets were lost. And so to make it in 4K, we had to actually go in and reconstruct every single scene, or screen, I should say, in 3D and then render it out. So this was a very long and involved process. And after PST is out the door, we'll probably show the process that we went through of moving from original to gray box to this awesome final version. Yeah, it was a lot of work, but our team did a great job on it. Let's head over to the character stats screen, the bottom left one. Yeah. So again, the classic PST screen you remember with everything in a circle, but everything's at a higher resolution. Mort's got that cool background. You've got your alignment things there. And basically, we tried to keep the interface as close to the original as we could without it being frustrating to use. We tried to retain the character of it. We could have completely redesigned it in a very simplified way, but we agree with Chris that it's a character of its own. Like it's such an important part of the style and tone of Planescape that you couldn't have Planescape without this crazy UI.
Yeah, I agree.
What else do we got? We got our map screen.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So now we've got world map here. You can show walkable, which is super handy, especially in the Hive. The Hive, well, it's a very interesting looking area. The ground isn't always entirely clear as to what you can actually walk on. You can see we redesigned the world map screen here. It's got a cool border now. the skin is being held in place with like this metallic book that slams shut. That was a lot of fun to build. We've also added X's to all of the screens. When we sat people down and watched them play Infinity Engine games, it was so painful trying to watch them sort out how to close a window or go back in the UI, because every UI since the early 2000s has had some sort of obvious close button. So we made sure to keep it consistent. And then, of course, we've got our mage and priest spell books. However, you don't have any casters in your party right now.
So they're a little dull on the dull side until we actually get some casters. But
and then we got our journal screen. One of my favorite things about the journal screen is that you can search the journal now. So all those cool journal entries that talk about interesting things, you can actually find them and actually figure out what you're supposed to do. And then the bestiary is still there. Everything from the original game is there. It looks great. And all the original descriptions are there. You get to see the classic render from 1999 up close. This is what games used to look like.
Yes.
And it was glorious. All right.
So one piece of game developer knowledge here. So when you're doing an isometric game, one thing you want to avoid is exactly what this room does, unfortunately. So you see the door that's over here with the cursor. The issue here is in an isometric game, it's almost impossible for you to see that on the screen unless you move the cursor over there. So when working on other isometric titles, part of our level design guidelines was always, well, you'd always want to put a door in a section of the room so it's very, very clear where the exit and entrance are. So when you want to leave, you actually know where to go.
And in the case of Icewind Dale, by the time Black Isle moved into that, they had a clever idea where if you want to have a door facing a wall that's away from the player, you put a wooden door frame over top of it to indicate that this is an entrance or exit. And you'll actually see that carried forward into pillars, into Tyranny as well.
It looks like we've unlocked our first achievement, escaping from the mortuary. Yeah, I had the pleasure of doing all the Steam achievements and writing the text for those, and I had a lot of fun with them.
Hey, speaking of adding new text, so in the original Planescape Torment, if you bring up Mort's Litany of Curses, there was actually no way to see... Uh-oh, you're getting jumped.
Hold on, I'll take care of this, Phil.
Dear.
Okay.
Oh, damn.
2 jagged knives. Bite him, bite him, get him, get him.
Oh, he's running.
Yeah, what a cow.
God, man.
This guy, though.
All right.
Hey, that's the guy that stabbed you in the opening FMV.
Well, now the joke's on him.
And then this civilian's just like, hey, do you need help? No? Okay, I'll see you later.
Well, it's the hive. This is the slum part of Sigil. So
there he goes.
Thanks for helping, Anna.
I saw a familiar tiefling up there.
Yeah, she's doing it.
He's gone.
Hey, he can't run far.
Yeah, that's right.
All right,
Ooh.
sweet. There you are. Give me your cash. And then I do the standard Planescape thing where I'm like, okay, even if it's worthless, it goes on the character.
Because that's one extra piece of treasure you can carry now.
Oh yeah, every copper piece. Oh yeah, and then also the thing with Planescape is we have copper as our standard currency as opposed to gold because we're getting pretty tired of gold.
So Litany of Curses. Let's take a look at it.
I forgot about it.
So, that's the name. Although maybe this one's ability as well. So previously there was no way to see this information here. There were no screens that you could access it. So now if you right-click on the quick bar in the main UI, you'll actually be able to see a description of what these abilities are, how they function, and how to properly use them. So if you're a Planescape veteran, you probably already know how Litany of Curses works. But if you're a new player, this is actually a super useful feature.
Yeah, and also for more gameplay advice and hints, Mort's Litany of Curses is kind of like his ability to taunt something into provoking it to attack him. And that sounds like, well, that doesn't sound terribly useful. But with Mort's case, the fact that it's... Oh, it's a little bit... Oh, there you are. You think
yeah, he's running away.
Okay. Come on, get up to him, Mort. Get up to him. In Mort's case, the Litany of Curses...
You're never going to catch it.
Yeah, I'll corner him. In Mort's case, because it's a non-magical effect, yeah, this guy is a jerk.
What's the word? Okay.
Well, would you stick around?
It actually works on creatures that have a high magic resistance, which is pretty awesome. It causes them to attack Mort and hand it. Oh my God! Now I've attacked. Now I've gotten everybody.
You have stepped in it. Bad things are happening to you.
But it works really well against spellcasters because what they'll try and do is they'll do everything in their power to go up and punch Mort, when in fact they won't cast any of their spells either, which is super handy because it actually removes them from fireballing you or doing other like ball lightning, all sorts of other horrible effects.
Have you ever tried punching a floating skull? Not easy.
Also, like Mort has a lot of hit points and a lot of damage resistance, so he soaks up a lot of damage in addition to carrying stuff. So he's pretty handy in that respect.
Essentially a fighter.
Yep.
So let's jump ahead to one of the more iconic locations in Planescape Torment.
Let's do it.
The what was it called? I believe it had a typo in the name.
Yeah, actually, I believe that typo, in keeping with the original game, has been retained out of respect for the brothel of slating intellectual lusts, where it's kind of like a brothel, except it's more about intellectual pursuit of pleasure than actual carnal.
It's a brothel for your brain.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Which is pretty disappointing for some folks. But do we have?
Oh, I think it's time to give something away again. Let's do something big this time. Let's do a Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition T-shirt and the boxed collector's edition for Baldur's Gate Siege of Dragonspear, valued at over $130. So before I give this away, I just wanted to let everyone know that we actually have a stock of these available now on Beamdog.com. So if you want to go pick it up, you can. There are some left. However, we're going to give this one away along with a T-shirt. So the winner of the Baldur's Gate Siege of Dragonspear Collector's Edition and the Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition T-shirt is Netcrave. Good for you, Netcrave. Again, an easy to pronounce name.
Rock on, Netcrave.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So after the stream, our brave man Dan will be contacting all the winners to get their information so we can send this stuff out. So here we are in the Brain Brothel.
Yeah, and these are a collection of members of the Society of Sensation, also called the Sensates, which is the third faction we're discussing now. And their whole philosophy is they want to experience as much of the planes as possible. And that, whether, it's hearing an unusual strain of music or going to see a beautiful vista on their plane, they accumulate all these experiences so they can achieve a form of enlightenment within their faction. So the companion here, Fall from Grace, who's actually a Puritan succubus, she has assembled these students to try and train them properly in the ways of approaching this philosophy of the faction. And each of the prostitutes in the brothel, each of them sort of has a different intellectual challenge they do. Like Vest the Tail Chaser, you can trade stories with her and also learn more about your companions in the process as they tell their own stories. We also have a character, Kamaski Addertongue, who is an important part of a certain quest line in the Clerk's Ward, where the brothel is located. Clerk's Ward is kind of the upper scale part of Sigil. And Kamaski actually is her intellectual challenge is she just likes to insult people that come to talk to her, and she insults them in really creative ways.
Like me.
Oh, Phil. And one of the nice things is, because the more Mort hears insults over the course of the game, the more he gets exposed to new ways of insulting people, his litany of curse ability actually goes up the more taunts and insults you learn. So Kamaski actually makes him more powerful the more insult trading that they do, which is it's kind of a fun thing to write.
Yeah,
so.
Whatever doesn't kill your self-esteem only makes it stronger.
And I believe the actual dialogue is reactive depending on how many insults Mort already has, but I'd have to double check the scripts for that.
So one of the cool things about the brothel is that towards the back, I believe there is a secret entrance.
Right.
And the really cool thing about this room is it isn't really part of the main game.
Yeah, why would you go in here?
It doesn't really have any purpose. It's just a cool thing that you can go take a gander at and see these awesome descriptions.
Yeah, the artists sort of went to town and created just a lot of interesting areas to populate. Our lead artist, Tim Donnelly, he spent a good part of Planescape's pre-production actually getting huge sheets of paper and then drawing out huge versions of every level and then we would just sit there, critique them, see how they flowed, and then they would just get the concept artists, the environment artists, on making the final 3D versions of those levels. And this is a totally just bonus level that complements the feel of the brothel.
And there's the sensory stones that you can take a look at.
That's right.
They have really interesting little snippets that you can read through. And they don't do anything. It's just cool stuff to read.
Yeah, and so the sensory stones, to explain them, is the Society of Sensation has these stones where people can store the sensory experiences for others to view later on. So it sort of becomes this magical library that you can access, and finding the sensory emporiums in the fest hall is actually an important part of the plot, and can really inform you a lot about the planes.
And it's a good excuse to see a sexy statue.
Yep.
Which, you know, I'm never going to give up an opportunity like that. We got some more questions from the audience. Here's one for you. Are you ever going to finish your Arcanum playthrough?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, well, that's the hope, and I'm sure if you're familiar with out there, you can mock me considerably for this, since it's been a long time since I've gone back to it. It brings back bad memories.
Do you still have the saves, though? That's the key.
Actually, I think I do. The trick was finding the right computer and the right set of mods to play it, and then also get the camera set up. There's a lot of challenges, but it's still in the queue. I am not going to let it go, although I'm probably going to start on a brand new channel just to keep things going.
Well, maybe we'll do an Arcanum Enhanced Edition one day, and you can just play that one.
Oh, wow. Is that possible?
I don't know. Who made Arcanum? That was Trico, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I think Activision holds the license. If you guys can pull that off, oh my God.
All right, we'll call some people.
All right. Yeah. So these are Modrons, and the reason they're in the brothel, which seems like an odd place for these very mechanical, logical creatures, is they're actually fascinated by one of the sensates that are here. That's not her, but who's actually a construct that was put together, and they're fascinated by this machine that walks around and very cleverly imitates sort of human mannerisms. And the Modrons hail from the plane of Mechanus, where there's very regimented, strong hierarchy, a lot of principles I believe in. And the more intelligent and sort of overseeing they get, the more sides they get. And basically their geometry advances until they actually look somewhat human-like.
So a D20 Modron is hot shit, for lack of a better term. And I'm sorry for swearing, but it's the only way I can possibly describe it.
Please just go swear. It's all fine. The Clerk's Ward.
You know, the one spell that I really wish was in this game would be the Modron March, where you target someone and summon just all the Modrons currently on the march to trample over them before they return through another portal. But you do have the next best thing, which is the Mechanus Gun.
Oh, that's right.
Which is my favorite spell in the game, because it fires a gigantic cannon into a portal and then hits the target and tells them to go to hell. Very efficient.
You know, Mort has a similar ability to that Modron March, where at one point,
the skull.
Yeah, the skull mob, and the more levels he gets, the more skulls basically jump somebody for him and sort of dogpile.
It's like Magic Missile, but way better.
Yeah, but there's a bunch of skulls just biting people. I mean, you have to throw that in. I don't even know where that idea came from. It just, I think there was one point in the game where it just seemed like the fact that he'd made friends with so many other skulls, it just seems they would be cool and help him out. So.
Because you know, what else do they got going on? You know,
very true.
You know, one other question people have is, what PST-EE feature are you most proud of?
The fact that I finally learned to spell the word internment properly. Man, the QA staff at Beamdog, like, I wish I could have hired them as editors back then, because they really pointed out a lot of the spelling errors and a lot of the grammar stuff that I did, in addition to the full pass we did. And also the consistency in character naming is also important. Like, I think the owner of the Curiosity Shop, her name was all over the place, and I'm like, how does anyone know who this person is? Because we never spelled it consistently.
They used walkthroughs, I believe.
Yeah, I think
so. Let's jump ahead here.
Do you want to blow some stuff up, Phil?
Yeah, let's blow the shit out of some stuff.
I want to hear about this cannon you speak of. Let's do Under Sigil.
Yeah, Under Sigil.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, look.
And eagle-eyed observers may have noticed that on the saving and loading screen, thank you very much,
sure,
you can now see your alignment and the faction that you are part of. And this is handy if you've got multiple playthroughs on the go, or if you'd like to backtrack, and it just provides a quick way to see which save you're in. So, this is a save that has some higher level spells prepared. So So we're going to run around and cause a bit of a ruckus here.
Why not?
Let's grab the nameless one here.
Oh, I wouldn't blow up in town. I'd actually go below and start blowing some stuff.
Let's go. Let's be nice.
Besides, he's using down below like with capitalization, so you know it's serious. It's serious.
I normally, I enjoy massacring innocents, but for the sake of the stream,
our lead artist did that first time spells were in. He just went in and murdered everybody. Like, this is the most fun I'm having ever, and he was correct. It was really great seeing the lightning spells go off, especially.
So I'm looking for some worms. And I think I'm going to find them. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, they're all just talking.
They're just having a little worm meeting.
They're like, all right, when do you think it's going to show up? Yep. All right.
So did cream come in, or what's going on with these bumps?
I don't know. I really think they should go to a doctor, though. Do you want to do Acts of Torment first? Just start it off a little.
Here we go. I like his casting animation. He pumps his fist.
Yes.
So Planescape Torment was very heavily inspired by some of the older Final Fantasy games, which is why there's these awesome cinematic spells that have these really badass, intense animations.
All right.
So let's see what else we got.
You want to do Meteor Storm first? And
yeah,
then
Meteor Storm.
We'll save Celestial Host for the end because that's, that's almost a movie. Celestial Host.
But totally total JRPG style, and I love it. I think it's awesome. Of course, it prevents Planescape from ever being a multiplayer game.
Yeah, but it's a personal story. It's a single player story. And multiplayer couldn't quite jive with people like
That was actually a question we had about the Enhanced Edition. Did we add multiplayer? And no, we did not add multiplayer to Planescape Torment for several reasons. Reason number one, the game was not designed for it. All right, Celestial Host, I'm ready. Hopefully he doesn't get me because he could interrupt me.
You have Valor block.
That's true. All right,
that's like Valor's purpose. He's just like a wall.
Football. Here we go.
As you command.
Get it.
Justice.
I think I got interrupted. Yep.
Oh man.
Oh, we don't get to see Celestial.
No. Actually, I think there might be another way to do it. Well, no. I mean that's gonna be a little.
We'll have to load.
Oh man.
Let's Deathbolt them out of revenge. They're kicking my ass.
I like how Fall from Grace is like right a little bit there.
She's trying to keep me from killing myself. Let's send this guy to Desert Hell.
This is what you get.
Come on, come on, come on. There we go. Oh, now you're in hell, buddy. Now you're in hell. That's what you get.
No, it keeps going.
Come on, come on. Big money. Nope. I'm going to load a save because I got to see Celestial Host.
By the way, this area under Sigil was actually added by our producer, Ken Lee, who was like, you know what, we'd like to actually have a place where you actually just have a dungeon exploration within Sigil, and this was one of the areas that players could just unleash if they wanted to. And there's some of the nastiest enemies in the game are in this level.
All right, here we go. This time it's going to work. That's
Interrupting.
right. You're not going to get me. You're not going to get me. Yeah.
Interrupting casting is very D&D, though.
Mm-hmm. So here we are in heaven with Valor hanging out.
He'll also
Hopefully he'll go away. And go to hell. But yeah, these spells are just fun to watch, and you can skip them if you desire. But it took a lot of work to get them to work properly in HD because these original animations were actually built at 640 by 480, so we had to do a lot of work to sort of make them work in a lot of speed context in HD. So you'll see us do a lot of tricks with the camera. One of the questions we have was who designed the architecture of Sigil?
That was actually a joint effort. The main artist for Planescape, for which is the Coast, was Tony DiTerlizzi. He actually did a lot of the thematic artwork, the architectural tone, all the spikes, a lot of the curves in the architecture, and then our lead artist, Tim Daigle, took that and used that to sort of lay out the Hive, the Clerk's Ward, all the areas of the game with that aesthetic, including like armor designs, weapon designs. If we could add a spike to it, we did. That was pretty much one of the art rules for it. But the original creators for Planescape are the ones to thank for that, and then we just tried to implement it and stay true to the franchise as best we could. We have another question here.
If you would have to define the genre of the Planescape setting, what would you call it?
Oh, that's a good question. So the game itself, both pen and paper and computer game, is intended as an RPG experience. Although the interesting thing about Planescape is they violate a lot of the D&D rules on purpose because the setting allows it. And we even did the same thing with the actual role-playing game, where a lot of the D&D rules are sort of there as suggestions, and then we play it around with the story. So I would say role-playing game. It's got a lot of different branches and reactivity to it. At times, it has been compared to an adventure game, which I can't argue. Some of the sections are very adventure gamey in terms of, hey, find this item, find this solution. But when possible, we did try and include multiple solutions, which is not something an adventure game usually does. But primarily, Planescape is a role-playing game, and oh, this is going on. You're all so happy.
Hilarious. Let's chase him down. Come on, Skulls.
Get back here. But yeah, role-playing game, some slight adventure game tones to certain sections of the game.
Mort is in a bit of trouble.
Oh, he'll be fine. I think he's also got high damage resistance too. And also,
he's a tough little bird.
There is one hidden stat in the game too, I think called Luck, which I think was also the Baldur's Gate series. And Luck is kind of like this catch-all trait. It doesn't show up on the character stats, but it affects things like critical chance, I think hit point gain per level. Like it's a pretty handy stat, and we purposely made Mort's luck pretty high. So he's always got that going on in the background if all else fails. And if he dies, you can always raise dead your companions, thanks to Dianara's memory recall there. Another reason to speak to her at the start of the game, she can show you how to resurrect people who are dead. Kind of handy, kind of what you do. Maybe very useful. So, anyway, let's see.
Even though death doesn't matter.
Yeah, so we have one more question. How many playthroughs are needed to get the full experience of this game? I don't know.
What does it mean to get the full experience? Does it mean that you want to see every line of dialogue? Because that would probably take like 3 or 4.
That would take a lot of effort. And I think the best way to approach it is play like lawful good or generally good character. Play neutral, where you try and balance both, and then just go for the evil options and see how that plays out. I mean, in many respects, the major incarnations that you hear the histories of, like they try to span those alignments. There's a good one you don't really meet for much of the background, strangely enough, and then there's a very arguably evil but more pragmatic incarnation background that you come into contact with, and then there's just some of your incarnations that were just batshit crazy, and those guys have left a lot of traps for you should anyone come looking for you, and that's one of the challenges you have to face in the game. Ooh, Death Bolt again.
Death Bolt again.
That does not look ominous at all.
There we go.
Nice.
On myself. All right, I think it's time to give away another prize.
Fantastic.
What have we not given away yet? We've given away T-shirts. We've given away the Dragon Spear.
Your soul.
That's true, my soul. We're going to give away the poster at the end of the stream, so stay tuned for that. But for now, let's give away a Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition T-shirt and CD key.
Wow, two
things. So the person who wins a T-shirt and a free copy of PSTDE is Amano666.
Ah,
good for you, buddy.
Not an ominous name at all.
Mm-hmm. Although, is that Amano from like Final Fantasy Amano, the artist, or is that just a coincidence because you're Italian? I guess I don't really know what that is.
I don't know. I'm Sicilian.
Sounds
apparently,
like
we're not part of Italy, so it's yeah.
So it's an island. All right. Well, we're going to play for a few more minutes here, and then we're going to take a short break, but we will be back. So let's jump ahead here.
Done.
Let's jump to a different fight.
Ooh.
Let's take a look at Trias. So as you can see, we've got our alignment and our faction icons here. You can see those there now. All right. So spoiler alert for those of you who have not played Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition. John Delancey, Q from Star Trek The Next Generation, a man near and dear to my heart, is in this game. He plays the role of Trias, who is a fallen celestial, who is being a very, very bad boy because he's dragging a town from one plane to another by changing its alignment. He's got a really wicked voice. Unfortunately, I can't hear it because the way the sound is set up. But you guys get to enjoy it.
He's very pompous.
Detected.
What do you hope to accomplish?
What do you hope to accomplish here?
So he dragged Curse to the Outlands.
What do you want, Picard?
which is a pretty cool plot point. Like, dragging a town from one plane to another is kind of badass.
Yeah, and actually that's one of the things about Planescape. As much as basically everyone's fighting over mental real estate, and the more enough people believe a certain thing, you can actually make that a reality.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, because he, with your help, has changed the alignment of so many people in town, he's actually caused the town to actually jump across that planar boundary and end up in a very, very bad place where it shouldn't be. And we try and like introduce that theme very early on in the game in very subtle ways. Things like, you know, hey, help vegetation and sigil grow more, or imagine NPCs into being. Like, there's actually NPCs that you can cause to come into being just by pretending they exist.
The whole Adon plot is one of my favorites in the game.
Yeah,
I really enjoy it.
Remarkably easy to do. Yeah.
So we had one pretty good question, actually. What section of the game would you improve? Like, the original design didn't live up to your standards. What would you change?
Actually, so there's probably two areas that we revised. One area we actually did get to revise, but we would like to spend more time on it. Actually, it's the town of Cursed near the end of the game. It actually went through a second revision, but I think people would have liked to have done even a third revision to it. Also, I think if there was a chance to go back and redo the Buried Village, I think that would probably be one area that we'd like to retouch. Overall, we had a resource issue on Torment, and that there was only so many levels we could do, but yeah, we thought it was important that we show the main city in the setting. So a lot of the game takes place in Sigil versus the Night of the Saturday. I do know that if we approach this game again, or if there were other adventures in the Planescape universe, I definitely want to be the chance to go to other planes and explore them more thoroughly, because the original game just only touched upon certain ones.
And that's the real appeal of Planescape, is that in the setting, the campaign setting, you can essentially go on a grand tour of all of reality.
You can go anywhere and do anything, and it's incredibly freeing.
And Planescape Torment did a good job of showing you a sliver of that, but there's so much more out there that would be so awesome to check out and explore. So I would definitely love to see another game setting. So Trias is ruining my day.
He is pretty tough. He might have his gloves up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he does. I'm actually not making any progress here. So we're just going to keep hammering on him until I die, which is going to be very soon.
I will say, if you pause the game for a second and then show Nordom. Another fun fact, if you're not familiar with it, so that you can actually have one of those Modrons we showed at the brothel before. You can actually find one of them that's gone rogue, and he joins your party. One fact that people aren't aware of, well, a lot of them aren't aware of, is the fact that it's actually voiced by Dan Castellaneta, Homer Simpson.
Homer Simpson,
and yeah, he did a really great job with it. And also, embarrassingly enough, it's why some of Nordum's lines actually are lines from the Simpsons, unfortunately. So, but maybe, I don't know. So.
Speaking of that, we actually had a question about Mort, whether or not he was based on another character. Dan, do you remember what that question was? Yeah, Monkey Island.
Oh no, but I do remember Murray, but no, Mort was sort of his own creation. The reason we made him was, the first problem was, like I mentioned before, like there's so much going on in Planescape, it's hard to explain it.
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, wouldn't it be good if you actually had a Mimir, which is one of those floating skull encyclopedias that follows a player around and helps explain stuff. But the problem is, Mimirs don't have any personality, and we're like, well, that's kind of boring. Like, well, what if we did like make one that did have a personality? And then I'm like, well, what if he had more of an involved backstory than that? And then that's how Mort came about. And it was a series of steps based on game development necessity and narrative necessity.
In the end, it worked out. I think probably the easiest way to describe him to people who haven't played Planescape Torment is that he's essentially the Minsk of PST, but not in like a silly, over-the-top way. He's the comic relief character. Yeah. So, all right. I think we're going to take a quick break here. We will be back in about 10-15 minutes, and we will see you guys soon. Stay tuned for more prizes and giveaways, and we're going to show off more of Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition. So we will see you guys soon. Hello. And
hello again.
Yeah.
Hello, Phil.
Hello, Chris. Well, here we are back again at the Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition live stream. I think it's time to give something away. Let's see. Let's give away a T-shirt. How about that? Let's do another T-shirt. Yeah, let's do another T-shirt. So we're going to pick randomly from the people in the audience and give them a T-shirt. And the winner of the random draw is Terry Tunes. Hey, I know that name. She drew a picture of me once.
I want you to share that, Phil.
Oh, dear, no. Anyways, congratulations, Terry Tune. You have won yourself a free T-shirt. Let's get back into Planescape Torment.
All right, sounds good. We should...
I think we should look at the languages. I think that's what we should do.
I like language.
So languages in Planescape Torment, we have got several. There's English, German, French, Korean, and Polish. And the cool thing is that all of these languages are fully localized, which means that when you go back to this screen, hey, check out.
I want to play like this.
It's even curved. Look at that.
That's rad.
If I were a Korean reader, I would be very impressed. But I'm not, so I don't know if I should be impressed. There we go. And we even added the little special C to the Korean alphabet. We go the extra mile. All right. We also had a question about the Enhanced Edition features. So I'm going to load up a save here, and we're going to take a gander at some of these. So if we pop into settings, let's take a look at gameplay here. So we've got all the classic Infinity Engine settings here, but you'll notice that some of them have a little asterisk here. So every setting that has an asterisk is an Enhanced Edition feature, and you can toggle that on or off. So smooth area transitions, you may have noticed that when we move between areas, there's that nice little fade in and fade out to make it less jarring. And that's something that you can toggle on and off. If we go into graphics, you can see there's a whole host of things that you can change. You can do things like sprite outlines. You may have noticed that all of the sprites in the game had a bit of a darker outline to them. And that's to help them stand out from the backgrounds in the game. But if you'd like to play it the original way, you can actually turn that off. Grayscale on pause. When you pause the game, the world goes gray, which makes it easier to pick out characters in combat. Highlight selected sprite. This is, of course, the highlight that appears when the mouse goes over a sprite. You can toggle that if you desire. Linear scaling, game world scaling. These are different settings for how the game looks when it's stretched and made larger. And then there's a bunch of other settings as well that are just accessibility and convenience things like double-sized cursor, compatibility renderer if you have an extremely old video processor. Lots of fun stuff like that. And for the sound as well, we have these options. For the movies, you can see all of the movies from the game are listed here as you discover them. So those are some of our options. But let's get into another actual save here. And actually, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to show something really, really cool. The Korean version of the game.
Oh, the localized box.
The localized box. This is the actual Korean copy of Planescape Torment that we had to track down, and that was a real nightmare because there's about 4 of these left in the world. It was completely localized into Korean by Samsung, believe it or not. And so we wanted to track down an original box of the Korean version to make sure that the translation we had was the accurate Planescape one. So this took several weeks to get here, and it was really awesome when we got it.
You know, Phil, one of the interesting things is, so the localization department and marketing back at Interplay would often release more interesting versions of the game boxes than the American version. And I remember the first day we saw the Polish version of the Planescape box, and I'm like, this looks incredible. They had they used the yellow poster for it. They had the range of the entire companions, the Lady Pain in the background. They had all sorts of, I think they even had a t-shirt in the box, and it was solid. I'm just like, wow, thanks.
Somebody just asked, did Planescape Torment sell well in Korea? We don't actually know what the original game sold like in Korea because those figures were kind of lost. But what we have discovered with Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale is that Korea is nuts for D&D games. They love it. They can't get enough of it. The Korean version of Icewind Dale has actually been one of our more successful ones, so that's been a lot of fun.
Wow, I had no idea.
There's actually a huge D&D audience throughout Asia, and they love these games, but there's just not a lot of localized content out there for them. So we're happy to do what we can for those people. So some of you may remember the Smoldering Corpse Bar, one of the more iconic locations from Planescape Torment.
Yeah, the writer for this location was Colin McComb. and he ended up including all these stories in one bar location that basically sums up a lot of what's going on with the physics in Planescape. Like one or two of the characters outline a lot of the physics very, very thoroughly in this Smoldering Corridor. And of course, you can get one of your companions here too. If the
this gentleman here who's perpetually on fire.
I believe Ignis is a conduit to the elemental plane of fire. Yeah, he and Valor were intended as two of the things that could kill you, because Valor embodied justice, and Ignis was literally just that doorway to the elemental plane of fire, and Ravel's magic couldn't stand against either one of those things.
So Ignis is one of the more interesting characters of the game. Was there an interesting story behind how he came to be, or was he like this from his initial inception onward?
You know, I used to set people on fire for a living, and it was very enjoyable, but I had to stop. The police were getting close. No, actually, I just thought it would be a cool-looking character, and he sort of embodied sort of like an extra-planar entity. And I just thought and also I'd read Stephen King's Carrie, and it's a throwaway line in that book, but they imply that Carrie herself is actually a gateway to hell, and that's why she unleashes all her pyrokinetics. And I'm like, wow, that'd be really cool if it was almost a plane of fire in Planescape. I wonder if it's a sorcerer, and I wonder if he also has a background that could be uncovered. And Ignis's backstory isn't as thorough as some of the other characters, but he still holds a deep place in my heart, because there's a part of the game where he apologizes for all the things he's done.
Do you wish that you had written more content for Ignis?
I don't know. It's tough with him and Valor, because it's another issue like with the Lady of Pain issue. Like, how much more lore do you want to add before the character actually starts being less impressive? And this is sort of like it's like Sauron in Lord of the Rings. Like, we used to have this argument all the time for other role-playing games. We're like, how much detail do you give about a villain, and how do you make sure that that detail doesn't undermine the threat they represent? Because the more nebulous the threat is, the more terrifying the threat is.
Well, it's like in BG2, I mean, knowing very little about John Irenicus for 90% of the game makes him a more imposing figure, because you're not entirely clear as to the scope of his powers or even the scope of what he's trying to accomplish. And for me, that made him a much more memorable enemy than perhaps Sarevok was, because Sarevok's goals were very straightforward, very limited, and you learned the entirety of his plan, not quite at the end of the game, but pretty early on, which kind of lessens his impact towards the end.
And you know, with the right character design too, like that learning the last 10%. I mean, learning about the character last 10% of the game. As long as you understand what that revelation is going to be, you can include like lots of little foreshadowing elements that makes it all click when you hear it. You're like, oh, well, now that part's explained. Now I understand why he did that, why he said that, and get it. Ignis has unlocked his achievement. Yay.
So just a reminder, hey, we have achievements now in Planescape Torment, so if you're an achievement hunter, come get them. How many achievements were there? Like 30, 40 around there?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and Chris, you wrote all new ones.
I know. It's I wish I could recall the exact number, but yeah, there was there were a few favorites of mine and some classic ones too, but sorry, I'm getting distracted by Ignis here because he's on fire. But one thing we did with Ignis and Dakon is, this is a little unfortunate, but so we already had a lot of spells in the game, but one thing that always kind of bothered me about both those characters was they didn't really have any spells that matched who they were. And with Ignis, I actually sort of begged Ken Lee if there's any way that we could make spells for Dakon and spells for Ignis that were specific to them. Like, and Dakon especially, like his equivalent of the Bible, the Circle of Zerthamon. I really thought it'd be cool if every stage of that circle actually unlocked a new spell that both he and the player would have access to. And I thought that was a nice way of sort of gameplay reinforcing the character.
So just to show people once again, so Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition is like the other Enhanced Editions in that you can zoom in and out as you please. But if you click the middle mouse button, it pops you into Pixel Perfect mode, which is the exact same as the original game. So there's no blurriness or zooming in or any of that stuff. So you can easily swap between them. And also, based on the settings that you change, if you have display zooming turned off, I believe it snaps you to the original zoom level of the original game. So if you really want that classic experience, it's all here waiting for you. Hey, let's take a look at this sweet map. Let's go to the Clerk's Ward. How about that? Look at this beautiful area.
I'm gone.
You can see so much more now. Instead of just like, I think this is roughly what PST was originally. It was somewhere in this zone, and now you can zoom all the way out to here. But,
yeah, the Clerk's Ward has a lot of really cool locations. I think there's the art gallery is there, which is awesome, and then the Curiosity Shop. Dave Maldonado, the designer, really outdid himself with the Curiosity Shop. It was just a fun location, and Rashika was she was just a very fun character. I think she was a very powerful addition to the game. Oh, it's a Civic Fest Hall.
So how many unique factions are offered in the game?
I hear your words.
I think of the ones you can join, obviously the Dustmen. You can also join the Sensates. You can also join the Anarchists. And also there is the Chaos Men.
Right.
And the reason we did Chaos Men, because the Chaos Men were so easy to do, was mostly just accumulate chaotic alignment, and then you find like Barking Wilder, who's their faction leader in the Hive, and then that wasn't too hard to do. I'm like, oh, thank God, we can have another faction with really low resources. But it would have been nice if we'd allowed for all the factions, but we just didn't have time to do that. Although we did try and represent them all in the game, like the Harmonium, the Doomguard. The original Planescape PlayStation game back at Interplay was called Doomguard. I believe you're either going to be a Harmonium officer in that game or one of the Doomguard. It's been a while since I've read the storyline for it, but Colin was heading that up before he came over to the Planescape Torment.
So jumping way back to then, what kind of different versions did Planescape Torment move through? So I remember the original title was Doomguard, wasn't it?
No, actually that was the title of the PlayStation game. The PC game was was Last Rites, and I don't remember why we didn't go with that title. I think it either was there was a comparably titled game on the market, or maybe it was taken. Either way, Torment was the one that was really decided upon. It was one of like those 20 game title options you give marketing, and then you hope that one of them's going to make it through. So, but Torment was the one for it. And interesting thing, the logo for Torment.
I remember the original logo.
Yeah, actually, they intentionally did the M to make it look like the suggestion of a man's actually hanging in the middle of the letter, which is kind of interesting.
And I remember the original logo had a different treatment for the T for Torment, and unfortunately, it made it look like Planescape Jorment.
Yes.
So that luckily
we couldn't have that, because that was just going to get confusing. You know, being Jormented for all centuries, people that are experiencing Jorment. It sounds too much like joy. Actually, it's just it would just.
So this poor man has been crushed here, and I don't feel bad, but
yeah, it's a whole murder mystery inside the Foundry to figure out exactly what happened, and yeah, there's a lot of suspicious characters, in addition to people that don't actually want to be part of the faction, which makes them even more suspicious. But yeah, I really love the animated gears, and there were a few locations where we're actually able to do really cool vistas like that and create like animated backgrounds, which to create a really sweet effect. But we just couldn't use too many of them due to technology at the time.
So one of the key characters we haven't really touched a whole ton on today is Rabble Puzzlewell.
I'm gone.
And she is a character that actually appears in several D&D games. I believe she appears in Icewind Dale as well.
Yeah, so Rabble Puzzlewell is one of the most powerful night hags in the Planescape universe. We did make her for this game, and the intention was that she sort of fulfills that fable fairy tale role of the hideous witch in the woods that is bound to do something horrible to you if she catches you, unless you happen to have the answer to the riddle that meets her expectations. And Rabble actually has a lot of different layers to her in the game in terms of her intentions and motivations, but she's pretty much the one that you're searching for in the middle part of the game and trying to figure out what role she plays in all this. But Phil's right. One of the things about Rabble Puzzlewell is part of her existence is that she leads multiple lives across the plains like branches of a great tree, because a lot of her magics in the game are very vegetation oriented, branches, brambles, and so you'll encounter other incarnations of her in other D&D games like Icewind Dale, Heart of Winter, Icewind Dale 2. Yeah, she makes little appearances, and if you know Planescape, then you suddenly realize these characters you're talking to, whether they realize it or not, are actually incarnations of Ravel. And that was kind of fun, like a fun little thing to put into the game. So
Ravel is a really fun character with a lot of depth, and I'd love to see more of her explored. Unfortunately, she, spoiler alert, is killed in this game. But she's a fascinating character, and it's really cool how she sort of exists in multiple locations at the same time. In fact, I think you meet several, I guess, aspects of Ravel.
Yeah, she makes her presence felt in a lot of different ways throughout the game, and not all of them die at the same rate, which is kind of interesting because it takes a while for her existence to finally come to an end across the planes. In fact, I think you can even speak to one of those incarnations even after Ravel passes away in the game, which was a fun moment to write.
So here we are at Coax Metal, another classic character from Planescape Torment. Tell us a little bit about Coax Metal.
Well, he is actually a combination of being a war machine and actually, on the more lighter, a weapon merchant. You can get some of the best weapons in the game, notably the entropy weapons from Coax Metal, because he exists to foster entropy. He wants to kill the multiverse, kill order, and basically stab reality out of existence. And actually that siege tower he's in was once intended to be a way that he would breach between planes and then unleash a torrent of destruction, move on to the next plane, all with the intention of letting the universe bleed out and die. But he happens to be trapped in Sigil when you encounter him, and then your choice of whether to allow him to escape or not is one of the most evil, chaotic, and or good parts of the game in terms of what you want to do when you encounter him. But he was a very fun character to write. And if Coax Metal is still in the chat, I certainly hope you're having your chat messages actually in all caps, because that would be more true to Coax Metal.
Hello to Coax Metal.
Hello, Coax Metal.
Yes. Yeah, I love the visual of Coax Metal. Like, just the color and the look of him is really cool. He's got like a weird wheel sticking out of his arm. He's just this bizarre entity of great power, and he's just so mysterious looking, and I feel like Planescape really captured him perfectly.
You know, considering that he's a merchant, it might be a time for a giveaway, Phil.
That's true. Coax Metal's the kind of guy who would give things away willy-nilly.
Yeah, as long as there's destruction involved.
Right? All right, let's give away a t-shirt and a game key. So whoever is announced will win a Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition
Oh,
t-shirt.
what an awesome name.
Darth Pebble.
Darth Pebble.
You get a free copy of PSTEE and a t-shirt.
Darth Pebble, one of the most dangerous of the Sith Lords. Forget Darth Vader.
You think it's a small hit, but it just keeps happening over and over again. All right, where should we go next? We've seen Coax Metal. We've been hanging out with him for a while. What would people like to see? Or I guess we could just start answering a lot of questions from the audience.
Sure. What is the next question? All right, so we have a question here. Was it hard to sell the pitch for the game, and are there any stories from pre-production? So for the first part of that question, it was not hard to sell the pitch for the game, and the reason for that was pragmatic. It was because Interplay, the company that originally made Planescape Torment, they had purchased the Planescape license, which is not a cheap thing to do, and they had yet to do a game with it. And that meant that all that money was going to be wasted unless we actually figured out a way to make a Planescape game. The PlayStation game ended up not happening. I forget all the reasons for it, but Colin McComb probably knows. But we did realize that because we had the Infinity engine from BioWare, it may not be too hard to create a Planescape style game that was similar to Baldur's Gate. And we didn't have a large team as Baldur's Gate, but it seemed like a natural fit just to take all the engine, the mechanics, and then make a Planescape game out of that. So that was kind of our mandate for that. But it was a nice mandate. It was very, very cool. Planescape was a cool world to do a game in, and I certainly enjoyed working on it. In terms of stories from pre-production, so we had a concept artist, James Lim, which I believe was the reason the tiny creatures are called Lim Lims in the game, because they're about as energetic as James was. So James was a font of energy. The problem was he didn't know English very well. So what I would have to do is, if we ever needed a concept for something, I couldn't say, hey, James, like,
All right.
you know, we need a church pew for the cathedral, because he didn't know what that was. And trying to describe it to him, we couldn't do that either. So I would literally draw out almost every inventory icon, or, hey, here's what a sensory stone should look like. And I would supply him with these series of concepts, including like character scaling models to show how big the object was supposed to be. And once he saw a picture of it, he knew exactly what I was talking about. But that was fun to do, and I also did that for a few of the maps in the game too. Oh my god.
By the way, we added a combat log to the game.
That is great. And actually, it's, you know, not just the combat log was added. We also have the option to do actually access the cheat log too, which is something that was never released before. But now you have access to the cheat code.
Finally,
yes.
So that same cheat menu that's in the current version of Baldur's Gate and Siege of Dragonspear, that nice little pop-up that lists all the maps and you can do yourself gold and experience. That is now in Planescape Torment, so you can finally cheat your way through this game easily if you so desire. The way that God intended.
The way the gods intended. Oh, that was sacrilegious. Okay. Well, let's have some more questions here, Phil.
All right.
Chris, did you read Pages of Pain, which I believe was a Troy Denning book, before working on Planescape Torment? It was. I read it during Planescape Torment, and I was very saddened to see it also had an amnesia character, even though that was a trope that I was also exploiting. I did read it during production. It didn't have an influence on the game. The only title that came out around that time that I was worried people would draw more of a comparison to was actually a computer game called Sanitarium.
I remember Sanitarium.
Yes, and I'm
Holy crap.
I'm like, the game came out, I'm like, really? Because then when I'm like, well, great, now like that, you know, there hadn't been a big amnesia thing in computer games for a while, at least as far as I recall. But and when Sanitarium came out, I'm like, damn it. But then I played the game and I'm like, well, this feels a lot different than Torment, but it's still, that was the one I was worried about a direct comparison to, and that one also came out during development. But I think we actually hired the designer for that game for one of the other divisions at Interplay, but that was the one I was worried people were going to draw comparisons to. Oh, look at the formations.
Were there any amusing images used for old textures you discovered while working on the game, like how Baldur's Gate had coffee beans in the dirt roads? I don't think we found any interesting textures. Interesting story, though. 90% of the textures inside of Planescape Torment were generated procedurally. So you'll notice that for a game from 1999, like it's got some pretty high-resolution textures. And it's because they were all procedurally generated. I don't think it would have been possible for you guys to generate this number of textures for this number of things.
I will add that actually one of our artists, Chris Jones, he, not to be confused with the programmer Chris Jones, but he actually loved the Wu-Tang Clan so much, he actually tried to insert the Wu-Tang Clan symbol into every area map that we had, and we had to watch for it. But we there's no way we could have got them all. I think Alley of Dangerous Angles is probably a place to go check to see if any of them are still there, but I'm sure they're there.
I think we can help him out and patch some more into the game. I think that would be amazing.
I would just add some more. I mean, why not?
You know, 36 chambers, whatever. But yeah, we didn't find any interesting textures. Although, and this one was actually known before we started on PST. In one of the maps, one of the level designers, he actually wrote his name in the search map, like where players can walk, but outside of the town. So the only possible way to see this was to load up the map inside of like the game editor and look at it and say, oh, look, you can see that he wrote his name there. But, however, we added the ability to show walkable. So if you cheated and exposed the entire map and then turned show walkable on, you could actually see written in purple was so-and-so was here. And I'm sorry I don't remember the name, but if you look online, you can find it.
Which was it for Planescape?
Yeah, it was. I think it was in Cursed. Someone in the chat knows, surely. It was discovered years and years ago, but
oh man, I want to know.
We had completely forgotten it, and then we saw it in the editor, and we just busted out laughing.
That's got to have been Chris. Chris was a character. He worked really hard.
We were so tempted to add, and so was Beamdog, but we didn't want to go all Shawshank Redemption on it. But
one quest we did have to cut from the game. Now that I saw that you had the Modron maze.
I'm gone.
There is so in the game you can actually carry around this little mini dungeon that you can explore. It's like procedural, like it'll change shape. It was intended to make fun of Diablo 1 a little bit because everybody in the office was playing Diablo and it was driving me nuts. But one of the quests we left out of the Modron maze was there was a chance that every time you went into it that the evil Modron wizard would potentially capture either Anna or fall from grace and then make fun of the whole save the princess angle, and then you'd have to go through the Modron maze and try and rescue them. But the humorous bits was that Fall from Grace really thought getting kidnapped was interesting because it had never happened to her before, so like it added to her sensations and her memories. She's like, oh wow, this is actually very thrilling. I've never been kidnapped before. And we actually even had VO for it and things like that, but we just weren't able to implement it in time, so I would have loved to have added.
I think we might be super loud here, so I'll have to turn it down, but I just wanted to show us. Any important tips / pointers for a newcomer to CRPGs? Planescape Enhanced Edition will be my first one, and I want to avoid making bad decisions early on. Quick save's going to be your buddy. Quick save will be your friend. Quick save a lot. But the nice thing about Planescape is dying doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and also, this is a very forgiving game. Like, and that's one of the things we wanted to avoid because when I was playing RPGs, like, if I died and we had to reload and I lost time, it would be one of the things that would actually prevent me from, like, sometimes I just wouldn't pick up the game again. But in this game, I was like, well, why don't you just turn dying into a way to move forward, or it doesn't actually halt progression in the game. So if you want to keep playing, regardless of the load screen wait time, you could just keep doing that, and also it could help you solve certain puzzles in the game. So I wouldn't worry so much about dying. I would choose statistics based on your play style. Like if you really want to be good at combat, but combat isn't essential in Torment at all. Build high strength, high constitution. Every stat has an advantage. It's more just what your play style is. It's more and more how you approach the game. Just try and explore everything, talk to everybody, pay attention to your journal, and as long as you're thorough, a lot of solutions and ways forward are going to present themselves, and it's more just what sort of choice you want to take going ahead, and nothing is going to punish you so bad that it will prevent you from finishing the game, or just enjoy yourself.
And if you saw the rock paper shotgun change list that they did up as a joke, don't worry, you don't actually romance the Lady of Pain.
Although I guess we should have thought about that. Yeah.
Apparently, people want it. They responded very positively to the article.
Yeah, Richard Cobbett does this series on rock paper shotgun, and before the enhanced edition was announced, he claimed that he'd found the leaked changelog for the game, and in it was a bunch of just incredibly hilarious, ridiculous stuff like, oh, you're going to be able to name the nameless one, and of course it was all just a joke, and it was so funny. Like if you're not familiar with Planescape Torment, read that article after you play the game, and then you will laugh your ass off because he really nails it with the humor for that section. But it's really good.
The next game will be all about Lady of Pain. It's going to be a Lady of Pain dating simulator.
Yep.
You gotta get the right stats.
Don't worship her too much. You can't stand that level of neediness.
You gotta ride that border between getting mazed and bladed all the way to the end. All right, we got another one here. What named NPCs from the actual Planescape setting show up in Torment? Factals, characters from In the Cage, the Factals Manifesto, etc. Good question.
So first off, one of the major characters you encounter is the one that you buy tattoos from in the game.
Fel, that's right.
Yeah.
Fel is a major character.
So Lady of Pain has these servants that maintain sigil, and they're called the Davis. And they actually speak with rebuses above their heads. So you have to interpret their sign language. And Fel also speaks with rebuses above his head. They don't actually have a voice. And they float all around the city fixing stuff. Fel is a character that was brought into the campaign setting who was one of the first ones to turn away from the Lady of Pain, and now he walks instead of floats, and he's sort of considered an outcast by everybody else. But you can meet him in the game, you can talk to him, you can hear his story, and he provides a lot of good clues on your backstory and your past, as well as supplying you with cool tattoos that you can equip to your body. One cool thing that he was able to do in the campaign setting is he was a tattoo artist whose tattoos sometimes had the advantage or disadvantage of suddenly becoming real, whether you want them to or not. So that was kind of his unpredictable power. Yeah, I thought Fel was a really good character. I think Ray Valise, who also wrote the novelization for Torment, that was a character that he created, and I thought it was a brilliant character. It was really well done. That wasn't the only one though. Also Lothar appears in the game. He's sort of like the big lore keeper in Sigil. He has a whole collection of sort of skulls line the library of his den, and he's a great source of information in the game. And he's the kind of person that would think someone like Mort is especially valuable. So that ends up becoming a contentious thing during the game. But those are two major personalities that actually show up in the game, aside from the Lady of Pain, of course.
That's true. I don't think there's been a Planescape source book since 2nd edition. I know there was an unofficial 3rd edition Planescape source book, but the Coast has yet to bring it back to 5th edition. So if they ever do, I look forward to playing it, and I hope that some of the events from Planescape kind of look their way into the source book. Really cool.
Yeah. So I thought I read somewhere that I think at least Fall from Grace became canon at some point.
Yeah. She had a really interesting backstory as well. Her mother was Red Shroud, I believe.
Yeah, she was one of those more of those other lore keepers in the lower planes, and yeah, Fall from Grace was the exact opposite of her mother. And one thing that was kind of nice, a little touch we put in too, is the reason that Fall from Grace wears the color set that she does is because Red Shroud actually finds those colors particularly offensive. So it's Fall from Grace's one of her few passive-aggressive stabs at her mom, who she has little or no respect for.
Screw you, Mom. I'll wear what I want.
You don't like blue? Suck it. More larval worms. Another thing is, when playing the game, you may notice that a lot of the characters don't change their weapons, which was kind of a Final Fantasy VII trope. But the reason we did it is because we actually didn't have the resources to give everybody a full armor set and a full weapon set. So narratively, we got around it by just saying, you know what, Zakon's ceremonial blade is just the weapon he uses, and Fall from Grace doesn't use weapons. Anna always likes punch daggers, etc. And it was more a limitation of what we could actually have resources for, but narratively, you could make all those aspects work and make sense. So we just used it.
Do you think that had you had the resources to do full sets for every character, you would have said, let's let you customize the Nameless one a bit more in terms of look?
You know, I think one regret we had was we actually didn't want the Nameless one to have sort of a static look in the game. We were just forced to have it. Like, we would have preferred that you could have a female version, you could edit qualities about them, but character customization is such an important part of role-playing games that we did want to allow for that, but again, we just didn't have the resources for it.
And it's better to, cut it entirely than do a half-assed job, which I think in the end served Planescape better.
Also, a lot of it had to do with the Infinity engine was able to give a wide range of armor sets and changes to the character, but it was a lot more about how the engine was built and the way they built their character models that I don't think we had the same technique for, so it would have been harder for us in that respect. But
yeah, there's a lot of subtle changes between Planescape and the other games. One of the things that you might notice right off the bat is that the character sprites are actually significantly larger and more detailed than they are in Baldur's Gate or Icewind Dale. And that was just a style choice, but as well, like the angle that characters are in relation to the game camera is also slightly different. That's why you typically won't see Planescape sprites showing up in Baldur's Gate or Icewind Dale, because that slight difference in style and detail makes them stand out quite a bit. We did get away with it once with the Lemures, yep. Yes, in Siege of Dragonspear, but they had enough of a monstrous appearance that they could get away with it.
Yeah, and also a lot of the characters, except for the Rogue Modron, they don't have ranged attacks other than spells. A lot of it is just handled through melee combat and melee combat management, because we realized we didn't have a wide amount of screen space to play around with. And also, ranged combat became inconvenient when the character sprites were so large. So that was another limitation too.
Were there ever plans for a sequel to Planescape? I think we talked about this earlier. You had mentioned that one potential idea was a story that followed Dakan.
Right.
And the other was, of course, telling the story of all the companions from their perspective. Basically, the Nameless One story again from a different
there was one called Pariah, which was Dakon's story, where he goes back and tries to confront the origins of the Gith-Sarai War. And it ended up becoming a lot more complicated than that. But while I was writing the Circle of Zerthamon in the original game, I just found the idea of expanding on the culture so interesting, and setting a game around that I thought would be really neat. The other one was a pitch called Lost Souls, which took a bunch of NPCs that were in the original game, but not the Nameless One. Like, you got to experience a section of the game like with Ravel, but it wouldn't necessarily involve the Nameless One. It would just be like a Ravel-style adventure. And we include that for like Dianara, some of the Nameless One's previous companions like Zachariah, and we allowed you to see more of what was going on in the universe through their perspective. Neither one of those really got past the paper pitch stage, and there wasn't a lot to them, mostly just because the team was so burned out at the end of it. Like, the energy to pursue it was just very, very low.
Yeah.
But I still think the setting has a lot of still a lot of richness for other stories to be told and other games to be done, and that it's Planescape, you can just go anywhere and do anything. It'd be a waste not to.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of roughly similar to Stargate in that it's essentially just a jumping off point for any kind of adventure that you want to have. Ah, crap.
It's a Somian, yay.
Come back and die. He closed the door on us. Come back so I can kill you.
Yeah, we were allowed to actually make up some brand new creatures for the campaign setting, and the Somian that just ran by was one of them. They're the mage killers that came into being, and I think they killed one of the artifact, the Foster, a long time ago. So our Caminella did like five new monsters, like the Gronk, the Somian, the Trillig, and the Tropopodic. There was a whole bunch of stuff that he did where he's just like, hey, Eric, it's a big universe. Just go ahead and make whatever sort of creatures you think would be fun. Right. And he did.
So, and I think we've gone over this a little bit before, but just to talk about it specifically, were there any design decisions made for PST that were because of a limitation, but in the end ended up contributing to its character and its style, that it ended up being a good decision for the game?
Yeah, so we already discussed the armor and weapons, which I still think was a good decision.
Yeah.
And I think it actually kept each character more focused. Another thing was not allowing a priest class for the Nameless One. Saved a lot of effort, and it also prevented us from having to explain too much of the cosmology, as well as leaving it open that the Nameless One might actually be a god, in which case worshipping something else would be kind of weird. So that was one thing. I'm trying to think of anything else that really ended up. Well, obviously, we didn't have the same range of classes that Baldur's Gate did, and that's just because the system balance for trying to do too many classes and making them all feel equally important is difficult. And we did do one design decision, which was actually more complicated for the game, and that was allowing the Nameless One to keep switching his classes, which actually was a juggling act, both content-wise and with his character. But it just felt more in keeping to allow him to remember his abilities and just sort of switch the classes whenever he wanted to.
And ironically, that's kind of how 5th edition ended up being anyways, where you can stack your levels and sort of.
I guess we were just before our time. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll just have to port PST to 5th edition or something. That 5-minute job or something.
Yeah, it shouldn't take very long. I think just hit a button. Compile 5th edition.
But I think we have time for one final giveaway, and then we'll do 4 questions as we come to the end here. So this is going to be the special giveaway with the prize that there's only one of. So we are going to give away a t-shirt, a copy of the game, and an amazing Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition poster signed by everyone on the team, including Chris. So, whatever, I'm just going to go grab it and mangle it. So,
come back.
Whoever gets the poster, I'm sorry that I'm about to wreck it, but you should see it.
It really is a big-ass poster.
So there you go. I don't know how well you can see this thing, but it's signed by everybody. So one lucky person is going to get this. And Dan will pull it up for us. The winner is Duskzy. There you go.
You got it, Duskzy.
There you go. You win a poster, a t-shirt, and a game. Congratulations. So we have a tiny bit of time left. We'll answer a few more questions. So after this, Chris is going to return to his home dimension, and you will never get to speak to him ever again. So if there was ever a time that you wanted to ask him a question, this is the time. It doesn't have to be related to Planescape.
Whoa.
What's his favorite breakfast food?
Cheerios.
Well, I mean, let them have
I saw it. I really do like Cheerios, though.
Okay, well, if you want to make him happy, send him a lot of Cheerios.
No, my God.
Mail.
Why are there 50 boxes of Cheerios?
Like, Amazon Prime, I believe, will ship crates.
It's on my wish list, yes.
Yeah. All right, we got another one. Chris, you could write these stories down and get them turned into comics.
That is very true. I think that would be a Wizards of the Coast decision, but I would not object to that. I think that'd be a lot of fun to write.
Also, not really a question so much as a comment, I guess. Are you hard on yourself when you look at your work from 20 years ago?
Yes, it's really hard to see because you don't see it for the first time. All you see is I mean, I'm sure you've had this experience too, Phil.
Yep.
Like all you see is the iterations that actually led up to the final product. You're like, well, if only there'd been time to do this or do that, or oh my God, there was a bug I didn't catch. Like all those things kind of eat out of you a little bit, but then it's smoothed out a bit, like when we get a good fan reaction back for someone who really enjoyed themselves with the game. They were like, you know what? At least someone was entertained and enjoyed themselves despite those things that I see, and that's the important thing. That's
just how it is. You're only ever going to see the flaws. But at the same time, you're not the greatest judge of your own work. You got to let the audience come in and tell you what they think. And people love Planescape Torment, so clearly you can't be that hard on yourself because you did a good job.
Just to share some game development advice for any budding game developers out there, one dangerous thing in the opposite direction is sometimes you might be part of a team where they actually get bored of their own work, or they think work that's implemented has to change because they've seen it too much versus someone experiencing it for the first time. And there's nothing more frustrating than seeing work get changed for basically no reason other than, well, it's the 20th time I've seen this, so of course I think it's boring. In those cases, if you ever can, just ask them to put the game in front of a focus group, and that focus group will affirm as to whether the content they're doing is awesome as it stands, and many man-hours will be set free.
And that's often why the first level in a game will change so damn much, because when you're testing it day in, day out, that first level is like, well, this is trash now, because I've seen it a million times.
Yeah, and actually the first level of the game, because it's usually the tutorial level, and because the game systems can change so much, including the interface schemes, that one actually also gets iterated on the most. So whoever gets that first level, mercy be to them, because they're going to be in for a treat.
Dear Alyssa, I'm sorry. What else do we got? Oh, what tools were used to render the backgrounds? Were they drawn or rendered? So all of the backgrounds in Planescape Torment and also in Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale are 3D renders. Some of them have painting over top of the 3D render, but for the most part, these were all built in 3D and then rendered out. I believe at the time they were using 3D Studio Max, whatever version was available back in 98, 99. But drawing, I don't think any Infinity Engine games have been purely drawn.
If I understand, crazy mage, if I recall correctly, the environment artists on Torment, the lead artist set up a pipeline where some of the environment artists would build out the 3D backgrounds, and then they would have a concept artist, one of them like Brian Menzie, who contributed a ton to the game. He would actually be given the levels, and then he would use his concept art skills to draw over and sort of paint over various parts of the map so it looked more natural. And that system seemed to work pretty well. They probably have to ask Tim and Brian to see what they thought of it, but overall I thought it made the locations look really cool.
All right, so we have time for one final question.
Dun, dun, dun,
This is fun. So when are you going to start writing the Planescape TV series for Netflix? And who's going to play the nameless one?
Wow. I wonder
The
why.
answer is yesterday and David Schwimmer.
Oh man, that would be really. Well, then
I've updated my journal.
Damn it, Rachel. Wait, let's make it happen. Well, I don't mind doing it for Netflix as long as they cut, the series down from 8 or 13 episodes down to 4 to 6 and keep it tight and don't go too far. I have many.
Tie it in with the Marvel shows. Make it a crossover with Daredevil or something.
That's an idea. Could just do an HBO series.
Hey,
that'd be expensive though.
But we could finally see, Fall from Grace or Anna in her leprechaun outfit.
That's true. Actually, they did approach Interplay with doing a movie version of Torment, but it just never. That happens pretty commonly in game development. Yeah. People will just come and want to secure the rights to something.
I'm pretty sure there were chats about Baldur's Gate as well.
Yeah, I believe that.
All right, so we're going to give one final T-shirt away, and then I think we're wrapping up here. So the last T-shirt to be given out will be won by, you know what, let's make it a T-shirt and a game key. How about that?
That's great.
Let's be generous.
Double the fun.
Because that poster is a real hard act to follow. So I'm sorry, Dan, we screwed him up by announcing a last-minute contest.
Sorry, so. Dan's been working behind the scenes here to coordinate the oh my God, Phil, you're so evil.
The winner is ChatDB. ChatDB, you're getting a free game and a free T-shirt. Please enjoy.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. So this has been our live stream for Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition. I'm Philip Daigle. This is Chris Avellone, and we've had a really good time talking about Planescape and showing off the game. Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition is released on desktop and tablets on April 11th. You can get it on Beamdog, on Steam, on GOG, on the Mac App Store, on iPad, and on Android. All of those platforms will be available on April 11th. And on desktop, it works for Windows, Mac, and in fact, Linux. Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition is available for $19.99 on desktop and $9.99 on tablet. And I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks again, folks, and we will see you in the next stream.